Well, g'day again. Thought I'd amuse myself while I bottle my beer with my Death Ray cattle drenched sugar syrup gun. There's not that much beer left to go, so I was going to do it all yesterday, so it would all be bottled on the 8th of the 8th. 16, so it's like 2 eighths and 4 eighths of 32, wouldn't you know it? And 32 is 3 plus 2 is 5, and I got 5 fingers on this hand, so wow, that's an amazing coincidence. But today's the 9th of the 8th, and 9 and 8 is 17, and 17 is 1 and 7, so there's another 8. Amazing coincidences abound. So anyway, as I was thinking here, as I was filling up my beer bottles, I was mulling over what a fine line there is between genius and insanity. Obviously, it's so fine that you can cross over from one side to the other quite happily and still somehow survive in the real world. Not just survive, but thrive. So, I was going to talk about the stars and the pyramids. The pyramids are a great clue left behind about the flat Earth, because they're a perfect map of the Orion belt, Sirius and all that. That's when you're getting serious. Because if we're on a spinning ball going through the galaxy, which we all once believed once upon a time, we got convinced of it by people who've never seen the ball. We never went out into space for hundreds of years, and when we finally did and got shown pictures of this ball, turns out they're all fake. Everything was faked. It's all done with CGI and computers, and so there's no point believing in fakery. You want to believe in reality. And the reality is some geniuses built pyramids a couple of thousand years ago or longer. I think they even predated the Jesus era, because we've got records of the Jesus era, and that was 2,000 years ago. And so I was thinking to myself, I might go and build some pyramids too, because I'm a little bit genius like that. Let that sink in. So you could probably build a nice big pyramid the size of Giza in about 20 years if you had the right crew. You don't need to carve any rocks. You just need a big area where you can grow shitloads of hemp. And while you're at it, you might want to farm a whole shitload of oysters as well, because they're really good filter feeders. And that's why I reckon building domes is a great idea too, because if you go to a nice desert region, is that clean? Oh well, if I get a bad one, I'll know why. If you go to a desert region where there's nothing much happening, and you go use a big giant 3D printing thingy, and you use it to print molten glass into very large blocks. Forget the pyramid for a second. We're not building a glass pyramid. This is for the dome. We want to build a big dome sort of shell. And to do that, you need sand, which the desert has ample of, but it doesn't have much water. So what you would do is put out a big pipeline dredged out into the ocean. On a dredger out in the ocean, pump a heap of water and sand into a big sort of basin out in the middle of the desert somewhere, and slowly build your glass blocks that fit together via, what would you say, well, we know how Lego fits together. Well, a little bit like Lego, but more in 3D jigsaw puzzle type pieces where a block sort of slots into another one and locks into place, and then the next one can come and lock into place. But they're made with, you know, nice smooth edges on the outside and the inside, so that they get built up around in a big wall fashion that slowly curves in on itself and makes a perfect dome. It gets a little bit tricky doing the top piece and all the rest. Then you'd put some pillars for support in it, which is why you're growing the hemp, to make hempcrete. And once you've got an enclosed dome, all that water that keeps evaporating. Did I sugar that one? The water gets purified, so you collect around the edge in a big moat or pipes or drains or whatever you want to collect the fresh water. Meanwhile, you're left with salt, which is a great thing for remineralizing your water, because you want some amount of minerals in it. Really good for you. Salt of the earth. And you also extract a lot of the heavy metals in the process too. If you did a bit of electrolysis on it, get some gold and silver and take out all the nasty ones like lead and mercury and all that as well. So it's a long-term purification process basically. Now the point of all this is you're going to create a lot of excess organic matter by all the people that are eating and pooping and everything, which is great because you'll get the deserts to bloom, fertilize great big hemp fields, grow more hemp. Now the beautiful thing about hemp, there's 1,000 beautiful things about hemp: medicine, food, the seed is the most nutritious, the oil is brilliant, beautiful stuff. You can even use it for biodiesel if you felt like you had to have some tractors and that, which you wouldn't have inside your domes, of course. But the other part of the hemp plant, which is often overlooked, is the herd. You know, we know everything about the fibre and the oil and the food and the medicine, the beautiful, beautiful medicine. But the herd has some really awesome properties that, when mixed with certain other things like lime, which hence why you've got the oysters, because you use the shells for the lime content, and you mix that. I'm not sure the ratio, I haven't gone into all that yet, I'm not the genius as that part, but I reckon mixing it with then certain amounts of local quarried sand, that's what Egyptians would have done, and they would have poured it into large block moulds, which are easy to make. You don't have to be a super duper mathematician to be a carpenter and make a perfectly square or rectangular mould out of timber and fiberboard or canvas even. And so I reckon they did in those South American places. They would have used canvas. That's why the rocks have these beautiful bulges on them and they fit together perfectly. They weren't carved. They were poured into moulds with hemp and hemp herd and lime and locally available minerals. And the thing about the hemp is that over time it petrifies into stone. Oh yeah, wow. So that's how they built the pyramids. See, it's not that difficult. And as I say, you wouldn't need a huge crew of people constantly knocking up these big moulds and making giant bricks, basically, stacking them up as they're setting and making them on site. You know, if you did it in the pyramid shape, once you built your base, then you build your next layer and your next and your next and your next, and then you've got a giant communication device to talk to other planets. Which of course we know there are no other planets. This is the other thing I was going to talk about then, about the stars and the dome and how the pyramids were laid out in such a way to map the stars, to show us that they don't change, that we're not on a spinning ball screaming through the galaxy following the sun. We're on a perfectly flat and still plane, and we're obviously within a dome because the atmosphere is always there. It doesn't just dissipate into the vacuum of space because it's covered up, and so therefore the stars, not very clean either, they're not other suns, they're not other planets, they are luminaries, they are sonoluminescence. Sonar from the word sound, luminescent from the word light. They are literally the choirs of angels watching over us, constantly singing their beautiful oh. There's that box done. Oh, we're nearly out of beer too, so that's good. So the dome is a firmament separating the waters above from the waters below. Sonoluminescence occurs in water. That's why the stars are surrounding us above the dome, above the firmament, constantly watching over us, letting us map them out with giant pyramid maps in the desert. And it's up to us to make heaven on earth. And that is why I want to make the big glass domes, because that is how we will make heaven on earth. You think about the things that plague us is the weather, floods, chemtrails, that's man-made shit being sprayed around poisoning us. So a dome will protect us from that. Will purify our water and everything. And as I've mentioned in my other videos about the domes, is how we can isolate them by going into a nice sterile desert environment and making sure that anybody that enters into them hasn't been vaccinated, carrying disease, they've got all their worms flushed out of them, they're not carrying parasites, so we might need some gas chambers, so in the future they'll look at us like there was a Holocaust, oh, they're gassing people. Fucking bullshit. The history people, there were no gas chambers. And yeah, we'll get rid of the other parasites too, the ones Hitler failed to do properly. Oh no. Alright, well, I need to open up another box here and heaven on earth, the domes. Alright, quite quickly, I've mentioned it already. Once you're inside an enclosed environment away from the influences of weather, so therefore your temperature is controlled, you don't really need clothing so much unless you're just feeling modest. You don't need housing because you don't need a roof over your head to protect you from the elements. So it sort of solves homelessness. And growing all these crops that you need to grow to keep the atmosphere correct anyway, well, you can eat them. That's where food comes from, it grows. And if you do it with aquaponics, you don't need nearly so much land mass to grow the food. You can grow them in rubble, in containers, preferably glass, because I love glass. I think it's a beautiful product. So nice and natural. And having large water supplies with fish grown in them, well, they're a good food source too for certain elements that we feel we might need to eat. They're tasty anyway, especially a bit of smoked fish, or eels even. But mostly, we got to stop killing mammals for food. That's stupid. We got to treat them like our mammalian brothers and sisters that they are. We're mammals. Bit of fish, bit of bird maybe. I don't particularly encourage the eating of bird, but you know, chicken is pretty tasty. Water dragons are actually very, very tasty. They're a native Australian lizard, if you didn't know. They're in abundance around here, and I reckon that'd be awesome to farm because they just eat insects. and they're tasty. They're like four-legged chicken with long tails that you can also eat. So then we can let the chooks roam free, and they can take care of bugs as well. Just got to stop thinking of killing animals to eat them, basically. When we have an abundance of good, healthy, natural food, and we get bees pollinating all our plants for us, we can collect honey and royal jellies, an excellent source in nutrition. It's got all the amino acids. That's what makes me so healthy and smart. Nah, I'm an idiot. I know. I'm a lunatic. I am a crazy hermit living on his own, coming up with crazy ideas to save the world that we can all do free of charge, free of cost. Fuck the government. Fuck them. We can do this on our own. It's such fun. Oh, it's such a perfect day. I'm glad I spent it with you. Oh, such a perfect day. You just keep me hanging on. You just keep me hanging on. You're going to reap just what you sow. See ya.